Interest rates are going up. Trying to get ahead is mighty, mighty tough. Bill collectors at my door. I need someone to help me raise my credit score.
Welcome to the Pearl Polto Show, another edition. Well, first, out there, I want to wish everybody out there a very, very happy and safe Thanksgiving, and to give thanks with what we have and not what we don't have. So we have to, look at what's going on. And because the show tonight, and if you live in the city of Philadelphia and any other great city, well, I want you to thank your firemen. And why? They risk their lives for us. And every day they're going home with their families and giving thanks that they're still alive. Other news of the day is we have a lot of breaking news. Next week, you don't want to miss it. We have the icon in the news, Trudy Haynes, will be the guest on the show. Yeah, you heard me, Trudy Haynes. And also, we're waiting. I know I got many emails and many calls. When will Josie Brannon be on the show? We are waiting for her response to give us a date, and we will let you know. So everybody that emailed me and everything else, please wait. Please be patient. She's on a tour. But, she will, as soon as she gives the word on the date, I will be the first one to Facebook you, email you, and let you know. But you can still go on my website to purchase her album Crazy Week. And I'm trying to get it where everybody gets it for the holidays, her album. The good news of the day, before I get into the bad news of the day, the good news of the day is today's paper, the Philadelphia Paper. It says, how my guest was on a while ago talking about the contracts of the city, and it was up in court. Well, the judge favored the firemen. Thank God. Now, this is good news and bad news because the mayor is going to oppose it. And even though the judge in today's paper, the Philadelphia Fire Department, the raises from arbitrations are withheld. Well, the judge approved it, but the mayor is going to take it back. So there's another question that I have to ask. The other thing, I'm proud to announce that the Philadelphia County Court of Common Plea, let me read this because it is exciting, has ordered the city to enforce our contract. This is a major victory for the Philadelphia firefighters and paramedics, and it finally provides justice for the men and women who risk their lives to keep Philadelphia safe. This is a great day for our union. I fully expect that Mayor Nutter will try to appeal it, the judge's decision. What is wrong with you, Mayor? But make no mistake, today's legal victory was a major, major win and battle for all. We will keep you posted what's coming on in the next couple of weeks, and we will continue to do everything in our power to enforce the contract award. So congratulations on a great win, and thanks to the law firm and to the many citizens that elected officials who supported us throughout the 3-year struggle. Let's continue to stay united and fight for justice where justice is due. The other bad news that I found out today, do you know tomorrow's Thanksgiving? And even though tomorrow's Thanksgiving, do you know we have a brownout in certain areas? One of them is Germantown. There's so many sections, which he's going to go into, that what does a brownout mean? It's going to be no service where you live. So let's hope their turkey doesn't go out the oven and cause a fire tomorrow, because this could be the cause of life and death. They don't tell you this in the news. They don't tell you this when it comes to anything else. And I think the people should really understand how important it is that our city backs up the firemen. My first question, and I've always been, but especially today, and the reason why is there's something else they're fighting now. They won the contract so far until he appeals it, but there's something else what they're doing. The guest before, what they're doing is our mayor wants to transfer the senior people out of the firehouses and put younger ones on. So they're forcing them to retire. Where is this going? Inexperienced firemen. It's not that I'm against younger firemen, but what happens to the ones that were there for years? They're putting them in bad areas. And they don't want to go in the bad areas. So what they want to do, they're forcing them to retire. Now, this is supposed, at times I'm so embarrassed to say, I live in the city of Philadelphia. Philadelphia is supposed to be the city of brotherly love. But you know what? They're so afraid to come forward. And what is wrong, and I'm going to say it, what's wrong with this mayor? If this continues, I can assure you that when the elections come back again, our mayor will not be reelected. And I will do my best to make this happen. Mayor, if you're listening out there, what you're doing is wrong for the people. You're making it good for the tourists out there, but bad for the people in the city. The trash, they're working to 12 o'clock at night. To our police officers, frustrations because of their cars. And the firemen is the worst. My one question is to you, why are you against the fire department? If you had a fire, and talking to the people at the fire station tonight, they said they would still come down to your house, and no matter, they would do what they have to do. So I have an end result to this, and forcibly, I don't want to run for mayor, but I may have to. I may have to at the end. And that's to give the justice where people is due. I want to welcome back the captain of the firemen. I want to welcome him back, Mike. Mike, welcome back to the show.
No, thank you very much, bro. I have to correct you one thing.
Go ahead. Go right ahead.
Nutter's a lame duck mayor because this is his second term. He can only run for 2 terms in the city. So
okay,
he's gone.
So he's gone anyway, so he doesn't care.
Right.
Then my question is, why is he against the firemen? Why does he hate? And to me, he hates you because he wouldn't be doing this. You're protecting the people that he's working for.
See, a little history. When Michael Nutter was a council person for 8 years, Michael Nutter was one of our biggest backers. He really helped us a lot. He was in our corner. Mm-hmm. And when he ran against Bob Brady for the Democratic nomination for mayor, the firefighters, Local 22, backed Brady. And people wonder why. And what it got down to was this. When we had a meeting with Bob Brady, he understood the cost of arbitration, and not only to the local but also to the city. He said that he wanted to negotiate a fair contract for the city and the firefighters, and that if we couldn't reach an agreement in negotiations, that he would live with binding arbitration. That whatever that arbitrator said was the law. There would be no appeals to binding arbitration. And I think from that point on, Michael Nutter said, well, you know what? You don't back me, I'm going to get you back. Mm-hmm. And basically what happened, that started an assault on the firefighters of the city of Philadelphia and the paramedics. Please don't let me forget them. For my money, are some of the hardest working people in EMS in this country. But what happened, and I'll try to give you a little background. When Michael Nutter took office in January of 2009, he came to the 4 unions. All 4 union contracts were up. And he asked all 4 unions, this is the police, the fire, District Council 47, District Council 33, the white-collar, blue-collar workers, if we would agree to 1-year contracts to give him time to get the city's finances together and understand where he's at and where the city's at financially. But if you stop and think for a minute, this man was a council person for 8 years. Hmm. He sat through 8 budget hearings in those 8 years.
So he knows what it's all about.
He should have known. Mm-hmm. If he didn't know, what the hell was he doing at the budget hearings? So looking back, that was a big mistake, because what happened when we come in after that 1-year contract, and I have it right here, there was things in that contract, and I'll read right from the contract. This is a contract that arbitrator Margie Brogan gave out. This is a contract that was from July 1st of 2008 till June 30th of 2009. Was issued in October 17th of 2008. This is the 1-year contract that we all agreed to. And under the page 3, under the city's ability to pay, it said the mayor introduced in his fiscal year 09 budget and the fiscal year 09 to 13 5-year plan, which is they have to do for the PICA statute to the state, proposed modest reductions in the wage tax and the business privilege tax, and setting aside $400 million for wage and benefit increases for city employees, including Local 22, over the course of the 5-year plan. So what happened is, from this contract, we had a 2% raise in July of 2008. and a 2% raise in January of '09. The following year, when we come into negotiations, when before binding arbitration begins, both sides have to submit their briefs and what their proposals are.
Right.
And we took one look at the proposals that the city want, and we said, man, we're in trouble. And that's when they came after us. And the assault really started in January of '09. Michael Nutter closed 7 fire companies. He closed 5 engine companies and 2 ladder companies.
What for, though? What's the purpose?
Budgetary.
Budget.
All right, this was all about money, because back then, as everybody realized, the economy started to go sour. And that was in January of '09. And then in July of 2010, he started the brownouts situation. All right, they have
Which
one.
we have one on Thanksgiving now. We have
them every day and every night in the city of Philadelphia. And I have the November schedule this month that I gave to you. But this is, I have some facts and figures, and these are the city's own figures when it gets down to the amount of money that the fire department saves through these brownouts. These are not union figures, these are the city's figures. Based on the city's own numbers, the award that we were just awarded, that we fought for. Now let me get back before I get into this. This is the progression of how this contract came about. In October 2010, we were awarded a 4-year contract. It was 0 the first year, then 3 with no furloughs, and it was a good award for us. In November of 2010, the city appeals it. It goes to Judge Panatento, and he sits on it for about a year, and basically turns around. He was running for re-election in November of that year.
I remember him too.
So he wasn't going to side with the union, because that would turn the Democratic machine against him, and he wouldn't favor the city, because then labor would be against him. So what he did is he let it go, got reelected, and then January of the year turned around and said, I'll give it back to the neutral arbitrator. So we went back to binding arbitration the second time, and both sides put their proposals together, and then that arbitrator came back basically with the same award.
So isn't this a win-win for you, though? What was in today's paper?
It's a big win for us, but it's not over by any means, because what'll happen, this Judge Fox in Common Pleas Court basically said you have one bite of the apple. That was our main thing, that you're allowed to appeal under the Pica statute. You're allowed to appeal binding arbitration. But once that binding arbitration, once that appeal is heard, that's it. That's our, and the city, even at the last budget hearings, Deputy Mayor of Public Safety, Everett Gillison, said, when one of the council persons asked him, what are you going to do if the award comes back in the firefighters' in the firefighters' favoritism, he said, we'll keep on appealing it forever. And that was one of our things in our thing to Judge Fox, to say, how many bites of the apple are they going to get?
What about this new thing that's going on with the fire department, where they want people to leave?
Well, that's not really how they put it.
What is that all about, though? I mean, they're not asking them to leave. What are they doing? What's the legal terms what this mayor is trying to do?
Well, here's what everybody has to understand. What happens in the city of Philadelphia is, once you get to a station, forever you could stay. We have guys at 26 in New York, at Engine 45, Ladder 14, that have been there since Gerald Ford was the president.
Okay.
All right, they've been there for 38 years.
And they're comfortable. They're comfortable.
Not only that, here's the main thing. They know that local backwards and forwards. They know what the buildings are. They know the streets. They know where the hydrant locations are. They know everything about that. One guy's in the engine, one guy's in the ladder. And then here's the big thing. As an officer, I was an officer in the fire department for 21 years. When you go into a new station, officers rotate every 3 years. So when you go into a station, the first thing you do is look at your roster, and you say, oh, man, I got a guy that's been here 30 years. Hey, Joe, man, what do you got? He's going to let you know. And then if you have somebody new coming in, it's going to be Joe that's going to train him. Joe's going to be telling him, here's what we do. Here's where we're going to go. Now, the city's thing is we're going to start rotating 20% of the fire department every year, and we're going to start with the guys with the most time in the stations. The idea that, and they're thinking behind it. Well, we want to give everybody a wide variety of, experiences. But if you take a guy from North Philly, which probably 90% of the buildings there are two-story middle-of-the-road dwellings, just like the row houses that most of us have grown up in. What's the difference between a two-story middle-of-the-row in North Philly and a two-story middle-of-the-row in Manayunk or Southwest Philly?
To me, he's forcing the seniors. To me, it's a push out. To me, it's called a push out. He wants to just make them all leave and retire.
Well, a lot of them are in the drop. A lot of them, in fact, I had a good friend of mine who I was in his wedding years ago, called me up. He's got 6 months left on a job. He's been at his station for over 30 years. He grew up in that neighborhood. He knows all the neighbors. He knows the street. He knows everything about that neighborhood, and they want to transfer him out. And he called me up and said, if they transfer me, I'll quit. And I said, that's exactly what they want you to do.
That's what they want you to do. That's exactly what they want you to do.
It's not forcing people out. It's people going to say, you know what, I've been dumped on enough, and that's it. I'm out
of here.
Yeah. And another thing you have to realize too, there's two different pension systems in the city of Philadelphia for firefighters. The X plan, which are older guys,
or the dropout.
No. There's an X plan. There's a Plan 87, and basically the X plan the older guys have is a better pension than the younger guys. So their idea is force as many as them X plan pensioners out.
Okay.
And it's cheaper.
It's the Godfather. They got the Godfather thing, so they're paying. But is it fair? I mean,
No,
is it
it's
fair?
not
What
fair.
about these people? I mean, what do they think? Can they object to it? Can they say no? I'm not going to leave. Do they have a right, or can the people start writing letters to the mayor to say, hey, we don't want this. We had this guy Joe Smo at our fire department for 30 years. We want to keep him here. Is that possible?
Well, we're basically, our approach is we went to city council and we made it a safety issue, because if you take somebody that's been in a firehouse for 30 years and knows that local backwards and forwards, and you take him and send him across the city, and you put some new kid that doesn't know anything about that neighborhood, and that one day he's driving, does he know exactly? If you're in Southwest Philadelphia, if you're stationed at 65th and Woodland, and you get a call for the 1600 block of Udell Street, which I grew up on, and it's 1610, now do you go up Greenway Avenue or do you go down Kingsessing Avenue? Well, you go down Kingsessing because 1610's at the top of the street. Yes. Now, if the address is 1660, it's at the bottom of the street. You go to Greenway Avenue because the hydrant's right there. So they're the little intricacies that everybody has to understand, that these guys know back and forth. And
the quicker your house could burn down, in other words.
Exactly. But getting back to the contract, and this is from the city's own numbers. Like I said, this was a 4-year contract, and you have to understand, too, that the police and fire have had economic parity for over 5 decades. All right? Now, in December of 2009, the city agreed to a 4-year, or it was actually a 5-year contract with the police. They got a 0%, 3%, and 4%. And then after that third year, they got to reopen it for the 4th and 5th year on wages. All right? But this is the city's own numbers. The award cost $66.2 million over a 4-year term. They're talking about our contract. All right? This breaks down to $16.5 million per year at a measly 0.4% of the city's $4 billion budget. The new costs are even smaller when you take into the account the savings achieved virtue of company closings. They saved $10.5 million a year by having those 7 companies closed, and $3.8 million for the brownouts.
Oh,
so that's a total, that's a total of $14.3 million a year, all right? Plus the staffing that they stopped.
Right.
They eliminated 140 positions off the top.
So they're making money.
And that's not counting. And Alan Berkowitz, I hammer his, I destroy his name every time I say him, the city controller.
He's controller.
Since 2009, the city has realized $65 million in EMS costs that they have made. They have charged and collected $65 million from EMS, from charging people for the rescue squad service.
They are making so much money, and my question is, what happened to the $1.6 billion that's missing? You're saying to ask to the controller, but people that has asked him, I mean, the mayor is saying we can't afford this. We're in a budget, even with a stop sign. The city is saying we're lacking funds just for a stupid stop sign, which I had a fight to get. But the problem is, where's this money that everybody's passing the buck to?
No, that's Alan Buckowitz's job as a city controller to find out where over $1 billion is. Whether it's bad accounting, whatever it is, but I mean,
somebody has it. Somebody has the money. It's not just bad accounting. It's in somebody's pocket. It's in somebody's. Where the mayor is saying we're in a deficit. Well, hello. I mean, where's this money and where's it going?
I know. Here's the thing everybody has to realize. After that 1-year contract that we had, and they showed us, their proposals for the upcoming arbitration, which we're getting appealed right now. We realized that we needed to attack the 5-year plan. What happened is, in 1968, the state passed Act 111, which is binding arbitration for firefighters and police, that says whatever the arbitrator says, it goes, because when we gave up the right to strike for binding arbitration. And what happens in 1992, when the city had a fiscal problem and Ed Rendell went to the state for money, they said the only way we're going to give you any money is we're going to pass this PICA statute, and every year you have to hand us a 5-year plan to say, here's the money we have, and here's how we're going to spend it. But we turn around, and the idea that when we seen their proposals, we brought in an accounting firm, the Siegel firm from New York City. We actually spent $91,000 of union money to hire these people to go into the city controller's office and say, let's see your books. And they did a 2-day presentation at our arbitration and proved that every 5-year plan that the city has ever given to the state of Pennsylvania is baloney. And it's amazing that the people in this city have no idea, like you say, where's $1 billion? Nobody knows.
No one knows. When we come back, we're going to go to a slight commercial. When we come back, we're going to ask him, does he have some solutions to this, and for the people to join forces with him. We'll be right back.
There's nothing more disruptive and annoying than getting an automated call to your cell phone. There are laws against companies using computers or recorded messages to call you on your cell phone without your permission. This is consumer protection attorney Carrie Flitter. You've heard me as a guest on the Pearl Polto Show. There are consumer laws in place that prohibit many of the unwanted calls to your cell phone. If you're receiving unwanted or unauthorized calls, whether collection, selling products or services, or otherwise, you may be entitled to have these calls stopped and to collect money damages that the law provides. If you're getting unwanted or pre-recorded calls to your cell phone, contact us, the Consumer Protection Lawyers at Flitter Lorenz, at 888-668-1225. That's 888-668-1225, or online at consumerslaw.com. That's consumers with an S, consumerslaw.com. If we accept your case, the bad guys pay our bill.
Welcome back to the Pearl Polto Show. We have a good show today. Fireman Mike Kane. He's been on before and about the arbitration and everything else. And that was Carrie Flitter. If you have a credit problem, make sure you go to my website, www.pearlpolto.net. And don't forget, the holidays are coming up, so you can go to www.amazon.pearlpolto.net, or just go to my website and push and do your shopping. Do your shopping on Amazon, and it goes right to the Amazon website. So we're trying to make it so easy for you when it comes to this. And don't forget, there's a lot of things coming up. But Trudy Haynes is a guest on next week. She was the news reporter for Channel 3. And I was a little amazed because I'm going to say here before we go back to my guest, his birthday he's a turkey baby, November 23rd. And I was a little bit shocked because my father and Trudy Haynes both has the same birthday on November 23rd. So, and you know what? I bought him a box of chocolates to bring home, so I must have known it was his birthday. Happy birthday, Mike.
Thank you.
We're doing a show today. He's fighting for the rights of his fellow firemen. And because he's fighting for his firemen, please, people, you know, you have to hear what he has to say. I always say people listen, they don't hear. And it could be your home. It could be your home that there's a brownout, they're on strike. Well, they can't go on strike, but it could be you. We have to learn to back up our society. We have to learn to back up our police and firemen and the trash collectors even. I mean, the mayor had them working to 12 o'clock at night, and I was watching, and I felt so bad. And I'm saying this has got to stop. The mayor only has his last term, but you know what? He's going to go out, and no one's going to respect him. But what I want to do, I want everybody out there to write a letter, pick up the phone and call to say, hey, you know what? Here's what the firemen are fighting for, and we're going to back them up. And if you don't back them up, well, he's out quicker than sooner, but he doesn't care because it's his last term. And that's the sad part about re-elections when it's somebody is running and they get elected again. Well, they have nothing to lose at the same time. But my guest today is Captain Mike Kane, and he's talking about the last thing we talked about is whatever happened to this money that the city claims that it's nowhere in sight. If you had to change the system, how would you change it?
Well, first of all, the city has to really start collecting the money that's owed. I mean, there was a report by Alan Buckovitz that there was over $1 billion owed to the city of Philadelphia.
From who?
From people not paying tax bills. I have a report here from Buckovitz that 1 year at the EMS, instead of collecting $60 million, the city only collected $25 million. Now, I know that recently they've gone to a new collection agency, but the idea that people aren't paying their bills. There was $117 million in uncollected water bills. Gas bills, how many millions of dollars in there? There's uncollected tax bills. There's so much that they can do. I mean, there's millions of that. Now, they're talking about people that skip out on bail and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But the idea is some of it, if there's $1 billion, and I'm sure half of that's uncollectible. Mm-hmm. But if even 10% of that's collected, that's $100 million. That if they just go after they actually had a tax forgiveness thing. It's somewhere in here. I should have put it out. That the city actually collected like $60 million from a tax forgiveness program in a month. I mean, there's money out there, and the idea.
Are they leaving the city? Is that the problem? These people are leaving the city. This is why they're not getting paid.
Yeah, I'm out of my.
And I know there's a reality show called Parking Wars. I'm not sure if you watched it.
I refuse to watch it.
Well, no, I watch it because I want to see something in the Parking Wars, and one of the cities is Philadelphia. How they're collecting money and how people are coming here as tourists and they still have to pay to get their car out. But all this money, where is that? This is going to the city too. All
right, this is the city's presentation in this contract that we have. This is right from the arbitrator's pen. The city is in the process of recovering more than $900 million in unpaid taxes and penalties, as well as $1 billion in bail defaults. A tax amnesty program ending on June 25th, 2010, generated approximately $60 million in additional revenues. There's money out there. You just got to go get it. They have to go and be aggressive. And I'm sure, like I said, a lot of this money's uncollectible because, they in that water department bill, they said there were some people that haven't paid a water bill in 15 years. That's wrong. When all the rest of us are paying for it.
I agree with you there, but I'm also going to go on the other side, play devil's advocate, because I have a consumer that the city of Philadelphia claimed that she owed $50,000 in water, and she said, "How can I owe $50,000?" And then doing some homework, I wrote to the city and I wrote to the water department, and then all of a sudden they can lower it $20,000, and you don't just do that. You do your homework to see who really owes this money, and not go after people that are paying their money. So I don't get it. They're going after the wrong people to say maybe that's part of the problem.
And the thing about it is, in the fire department, we feel like we're being targeted. I mean, there's been an assault on the fire department and the medics in the city of Philadelphia that's unconscionable. Even this is from the arbitrator and the city's own words, and this is what the city said, what we're doing to collect bills and reduce our overall tax burden. But he said, here's the thing, the Philadelphia Police Department is 3 times the size of the Philadelphia Fire Department. All right. They reduced, this is one of the things that they were going to do to get the deficit down in the city. They were going to reduce the police department budget in fiscal year 10 by $4 million. But they're going to reduce the fire department budget by $8 million the same year. So they're 3 times our size, but we're going to take twice the amount of hit.
Now, let me ask you a stupid question. If this brownout, like the Germantown area or another area, which they don't have they closed down the stations, if there was a fire and it cost people's lives, can a person sue the city, or do they sue the mayor, or do they sue the fire department if somebody lost their life because of all this? Everybody's trying to save money in the city. Could they sue to start off with?
I'm not a lawyer, but I know from firsthand experiences that people have been harmed, that people have died because of the brownouts and the closings in the city. And I'll give you a perfect example. I happened to retire last year as a battalion chief, and one of the last jobs I made was at 22nd and Fairmount Avenue. Now, normally, the first in ladder company, the 22nd and Fairmount, would have been Ladder 1, which is at 16th and Parish. Mm-hmm. That was one of the ladder companies that Michael Nutter closed January of 2009. Now, the second in ladder that would have been there now, what happens when you have a good working fire, 4 engines, 2 ladders, 2 chiefs. So the 2 engines go to the front, 2 engines to the rear, first ladder in the front, second ladder in the rear. The second ladder, which would have moved up to the first position, were browned out that night. Ladder 9 coming from 23rd and Market Street. So they're browned out. So what we got as a response was the first in ladder was coming from 10th and Cherry in Chinatown. And the second in ladder was ladder 6 coming from 43rd and Market to 22nd and Fairmount. By the time I pulled up, the fire was a 3-story middle of the row. The fire was coming out literally 10 feet out of the building and whipping around the roof. One of the people were already laying on the ground because he couldn't wait for a ladder company. He had to jump out the window. And from what I understand, he was an assistant district attorney in the city of Philadelphia. Now, if anybody known if they could have sued, I don't know if he said, you know what, this was bad karma. But if I was an attorney with the city and I knew that there was a delayed response because one company was closed and the other company was browned out, I sure as hell would find out whether I had legal avenue to sue him.
It wasn't there a thing where you can't sue the city? You can sue the city, though.
I think only if it's gross, negligence.
Well, this
I'm
would
not
be
sure.
gross negligence if somebody's closing a fire station up and my house is on fire and somebody was killed with it. I have to be able to go after somebody's mistake. I wouldn't say it was the fire department. I think this is where the people are doing wrong. They're blaming the fire department instead of the city. I think this is where the problem is. And instead of you backing up the firemen, and seeing where the problem is, what I'm asking you to do is contact the mayor's department, contact the mayor's office, and tell him to watch this show. But contact the mayor's office to say, we need our firemen. We need experienced firemen in the city. The old saying is, it may be too late. It's always till it's in your backyard, and that's what scares me.
Well, here's the thing. When you asked me what we could do about the mass transfers of the, and I said the first thing we did was went to city council to try to get some backing to stop this, in the safety committee to say this is unsafe.
Right.
And the second thing, and I really, I'm begging the community leaders and the people, the church people, anybody in that community, that go to the local firehouse and find out if one of the guys that are going to leave that firehouse after being there 30, 35, one guy 38 years in the same station. And if you know him personally, maybe when we come down for these hearings in city council, you can show up. Maybe a pastor from a church or a community leader or a ward leader that's seen that, what this guy has done in the community to keep that community safe. And he can go in front of that city council meeting and say, this guy is a rock of this community. Because you go to any firehouse and you talk to any people, the first thing they say, that's our safe haven, that community. Mm-hmm. That's where we go when we know if everything goes wrong, this is where we're going to go. Mm-hmm. and I can't stress it enough, and it hurts me that the and it's not the people in the city, it's the people that we elect that put public safety on a sheet to say what can we afford and what can't we afford, and to come out and spend $50 million for the west side of City Hall for the Dilworth Plaza, to turn around and say we're going to spend $50 million to make that pretty, and then turn around to the fire department and say, you know what, we're going to put public safety on the back step because we want to do this. And to us, it's unconscionable. I mean, we have to go to arbitration for safety equipment, for hearing protection, for exhaust systems in the firehouse, for good masks, for everything that we need. When we went to city council public hearings and the safety hearing, Franny Rizzo, who was chairing that back then, he couldn't believe that we had to go to arbitration to get safety equipment.
This is a disgrace.
It's
People,
unbelievable.
This is a disgrace, and it's a disgrace because many of you don't know. Now, you got an award last week, correct?
Well, the union did, and what it was Philipposh, and basically it's about safety in the workplace. And what they did is they recognized the union for trying to educate the public about how unsafe these brownouts and closures are, because every section of the city has been affected by this. I mean, there was a job up in Albany, Engine 61's local, where the 2 young Cambodian children died, and NFPA, which is the National Fire Protection Agency, says that the first company should get there within 4 minutes, and all the other companies should get there within 8 minutes. And Ayers, the commissioner, gets on there and said, well, the first company was in there by 4 minutes, but the first company was a battalion chief car. He had no hose line to put any water on the fire. He had no ladders on his truck to throw ladders up and pull people out of the window and make any kind of safe, get the people out of the building. What he has is a radio to give natures and conditions and orders for incoming companies. He has no ability to fight that fire unless he's going to run into a burning building without any equipment on and try to pull people out, which I'm sure 99% of the guys would do. But when I talked to that chief, the first thing out of his mouth was, "Man, I could have used Engine 61 here today."
Well, I don't think the people realize what's going on out there. Let's say I live, as you live, in a street, in a house, and my house is on fire, and it's 9 o'clock, and I called 911. Now, if there was a brownout in my area, how long would it take for the fire engines to get to me?
It all depends. I mean, is it middle rush hour traffic? Is it a snowy night? Is it there's all kind of here's the thing, people, and when Everett Gilson, when we start bitching about company closings and brownouts, and we really did a push to the public, Everett Gilson got on TV and said, "Oh, they're all bitching about their overtime because we cut out the positions they cut out. It was less overtime." And we found that so disingenuous because it's not about our overtime. It's about public safety. And I want everybody in this listening audience to go to our website, to go to our homepage. It's IAFF22.org. And on there's a video called Seconds Count. And basically this video, we didn't make it. This is from United Laboratory, I believe, did this thing. And basically what it shows is a normal living room. And just normal furniture, nothing extravagant. And what they do is they start a small fire. It'd be like somebody dropping a cigarette butt down, in a sofa or in a chair. And there's a little clock on the corner. You can see it, timing it. And from the first second that you see smoke coming out of that sofa, within 4.5 minutes, that entire room is engulfed in flames. So what we say is, we want to get to the fire as fast as possible so we can stop these fires in the incipient stage. We want to get there when maybe the sofa's on fire, not when the whole room's on fire. And so many times we get there, and it not only puts the public in safety, it puts our members in danger, because instead of fighting a fire, like I said, in the incipient stage, we're fighting full-blown fires. And here's the thing that drives us crazy. Here's the thing that members get punished if they get hurt on fires. There's members that have been transferred for getting burns.
Wait a minute, members. You're talking about firemen.
Firefighters.
They get yelled at.
They don't get yelled at.
Get fined.
They get transferred. They get.
Oh, this, you see.
Now, what they say is, well, did you have your safety equipment on? Now, what we have is what they call fully encapsulated personal protection gear. So when we put on our jackets and we put on our air tanks, what you have is a hood that comes over your head.
Right.
So you put the hood back on your thing, you put your mask on, you pull your hood up,
right.
Put your safety helmet on, and then you put your ear flaps down. But we have a member who was helping pull line. He's in a ladder company, and he's pulling line. He's got his hood on now. And as anybody that's ever seen a good working fire, a lot of times tar will melt. Sometimes the aluminum siding will melt. Well, that's what happened with this kid. Aluminum siding came down and dripped on the back of his neck. All right? There's no hood in the world, unless it's made out of 2 inches of asbestos. It's going to stop that heat from transferring through the hood into that man's skin. And he had a burn about the size of a quarter. And he got transferred from his spot all the way to the other end of the city. And then the commissioner said, well, we're just looking out for his safety. We want to make sure he gets proper training. There hasn't been any training on anything in this fire department for years because our numbers are so far down. And between the closures, the brownouts, I mean, there's just hardly any training going on.
What you hear, I mean, what you're saying makes sense. My problem is, why isn't there no common sense with the mayor that's trying to protect the people in a city? Why wouldn't he have fire stations open all over and the police stations open on top of it because of crime, because of fire? What's wrong? I mean, I just don't get it. The people, I know it's the mayor. The mayor's not doing it, and he's causing it on a budget. But what can the people do to say, hey, I want this done? What do you suggest to the people out there? To make phone calls, to write letters? If they all contact me, I will write the letters for you. But the thing is, what can the people do to help? Now that they understand what's going on out there, what do you suggest that we can do?
I don't want to sound like a defeatist or nothing, but what if you go on our website and look at that seconds count video? There's also 2 other videos, and the first video is about a young boy that died. I believe it was 55th and Walnut Street. Now, what happened was Engine 57, which is at 56 and Walnut Street, 56 and Chestnut, 56 and Chestnut, are 2 blocks away. Now, what happened was they were browned out that morning for the day shift. They came back at night. Now, there was something wrong. They were running with the reserve apparatus. So instead of being able to go up and pick up their frontline apparatus during the day, when they come in at 6 o'clock at night, they get a phone call from the shop saying, your apparatus is ready, come get it. So they leave at 6:30 and go up to Honey Park Avenue to pick up their apparatus. Then the alarm goes off. Now, instead of getting a company that's 2 blocks away, their first in company is coming from 52nd and Willows, Engine 68's company. There's the real time, and on there, in that video where you see community leaders, Janie Blackwell, there's a state senator there. All the community is in uproar. And when you see the firefighters' faces with tears in their eyes, apologizing to the parents that we couldn't get there in time.
Is it all because...
It's all money. It's nothing but money.
Is it, now that it's clicking a little bit, is it all because of insurance? The mayor knows that many people have homeowners insurance and that they could be justified, and he's not worried about the firemen because he's more worried about everybody has insurance to fix the problem. Could that be part of the problem? I see it because if he knows the home insurance and even in the worst areas, they have to have fire insurance.
Not necessarily. Not if you own the house, you don't need it.
Sure you do.
No, you do not. I know a firefighter whose house burnt down. He didn't have any fire insurance.
It's mandatory.
It is not if you own that home. It is not.
So what's happening is, the mayor really don't care about the people, is what you're saying. The mayor, you've heard this.
It's about budget. It's about budget.
It's about budget. But if I, there's there's budget, but as I said, there's 1 point some million dollars that's missing.
Billion, not million.
And they're not collecting where they should collect. And like, let me give you an example. On my personal street, there was 2 accidents. And when I contacted the city for a stop sign, they told me, one, the budget, it wasn't in the budget to put a stop sign. Well, I'm going to have a big mouth, as I want everybody out there to have a big mouth, but I had a big mouth. I wrote letters. I contacted them, and a council person did call me up. Matter of fact, it was Councilman O'Neill, called me up and said, good news. After I yelled at him, then he told me, I got good news for you. They're putting a stop sign up. But why does it take, like one of my neighbors said, why does it take somebody to scream and yell at what they want for protection? Just for protection. What's a stop sign? What's a gear that he's putting in to go into a fire? This is his living. And he has no choice. I know what you're saying, because many of you have said it by saying, why don't they quit? Well, if there's no jobs out there, why would you quit? I mean, you hear that too. Why don't they just get out of the fire department if they don't like what the mayor's doing?
Well, my thing is, and when they had the initial meetings about closing firehouses, and we was up to Philadelphia Fire Academy up on Academy Road, and I known Lloyd Ayers for over 30 years. All right, I know him when we were both firemen, long time ago, and I stood up and I asked him point blank. I was 10 feet away from him, and I said, "When are you going to say it? That's enough, no more." And he wouldn't answer me. And the idea that you have a fire commissioner who I believe in his heart knows that these things are dangerous, and they're gonna roll the dice. They're gonna spin the revolver and say, we're gonna play a little Russian roulette today, because like when I showed you the brownout schedule, and
it's up here.
Yeah,
And
the
that's
idea
on Thanksgiving Day.
That's on every day of the year. There's we have 2 divisions. There's a North Division and a South Division. And every single day and every single night, a company from the North Division and a company from the South Division is browned out. And basically, they're playing Russian roulette. And the idea, Ladder 23, which is at 10th and Cherry in Chinatown, if you have that company browned out, there's only one ladder downtown, Ladder 9. Covering that whole area.
Covering the whole area if there's a fire.
And then Ladder 5 is
and then someone. I was at the fire station tonight, and what are the hours that these people have? The firemen have. What are the hours? I mean, one said he works 12 hours, 8. It's not an 8-hour day.
Here, when we get back to when I said earlier about the assault on the fire department, and it started with the closures. Mm-hmm. But then what happened early in Nutter's administration is the medics in the city of Philadelphia sued the city in federal court under FSLA, Federal Standard Labor Act. And basically, because they used to work just like the firefighters, 2 10-hour days, then 2 14-hour nights. But according to FSLA, only police and fire are covered under their, what's the word I want to use? They're not covered under FSLA. So the medics go and say, we're not firefighters, so you need to pay us for anything over 40 hours a week. And it turned around, they took it to federal court, and they won. The city had to pay from what I understand, it was $7 million settlement to pay all these medics. So Michael Nutter went, all right, now it's time to go after the medics. So once the medics won that suit, then it was a full-blown assault. His first thing was to say, all right, if you're not firefighters, then you shouldn't be in a firefighters union. So they went to court. They went back to the Pennsylvania Labor Relations Board and said, they're not firefighters. They're medics. And what our thing is, no, they don't do firefighting, but neither does the fire marshal's office. They investigate fires. They don't fight them. They investigate them. The fire prevention division, they don't fight any fires. What they do is go out and educate the public on how to stop fires. The people that teach at the fire academy, they don't actively fight firefighters. They train firefighters. So what it is we have this, it's almost like your hand, and each finger is a different section of the fire department, and together is how we get the job done. And the idea that they wanted to kick us out kick our members out of the union, kick the medics out of the union. So when they lost that, then he said, how else can we mess with these medics?
You're
Well-
a crusade for a lot of firemen. No, you are a crusade, and I'm sure
Wait a
the
minute,
firemen
I'm not
love
even-
you because
I-
they're not even allowed to talk
Yeah,
on
that's true.
camera. They're not allowed to talk, and you are their crusader, and they love it. They really do. But I think it's time the people. You have to understand if he's going to be a crusader for the firemen, and the fireman is rooting for him. Where's the people coming in to back him up? As I said, it could be your home next time. But why are you so hard in fighting for the firemen? Because you're out, you're retired. So why are you fighting so hard?
It's just in my blood. I don't know. I don't know. I just
November 23rd, people.
you have to understand, and I learned all about teamwork in the Marine Corps, and the idea when I came out of the service and I did some construction and joined the fire service, you have to understand that police. No, I shouldn't say cops, but I'm going to talk about what I know. Firefighters and medics, we don't consider ourselves better than anybody, but the job we do is special. And when we get treated like something that Mayor Nutter scrapes off the bottom of his shoe, that's when my Irish gets up and says, you know what, screw you and screw your administration, because this is what you have to understand, that guys in the firehouse are so tight. I know guys that have brothers, and when they get married, they have a firefighter as their best man, or best man, or they're the godfather to the child, not their own brothers and sisters, the brothers that they have in the fire service. You have no idea how tight men and women can get when you face danger together. Mm-hmm. It's just a bond that you just don't.
Of course. So you must be more frustrated because you would want the people to do something. Well, I would want the people to do something, because if somebody's fighting this hard for us, I always say, are we brain dead that we don't see this? And it's not just the firemen. There's a couple, things with the city. There's also the police and firemen. But the firemen has to go into fires. They're going to get killed. And who are we going to blame? Who are we going to blame because we didn't stand up for it? And then you say, what do you want me to do? Well, you know what? Call my toll-free number and let's start a petition. If we can get thousands of names, thousands I'm talking about, and then we'll write to the city. And after I write to the city, they got to do something. They have to do something, because we'll picket, we'll do something, just as I did for that stop sign. And it goes, what do you suggest there?
Well, I just want to finish. I just want to finish what I'm talking about, the assault on the medics, because after they lost the suit to have them kicked out of the union, then they turned around and they changed their hours. They took them out of the 10s and 14s and put them on 12-hour shifts permanently. So they're either 8 in the morning to 8 at night, or 8 at night to 8 in the morning. Then later on, they turn around. Then they did a mass transfer of all the medics. So you might have medics who've been together for 10 years, who know what each other are thinking. Right. And they turn around and say, no, you're going there and you're going there. And they did a mass transfer of medics. And what they did is they basically destroyed the morale. Now, we have one of the most busiest EMS systems in the country. In fact, every year, Firehouse Magazine puts out a list of all the companies and what the run totals are. And I believe last year, there's a medic unit in Kensington, an Engine 7 station. Now, the average for a medic unit, what the fire prevention says, is a normal run volume for a year should be around 3,000 runs. The medic unit in Kensington did 9,000 runs in 1 year. And if you figure that out, that's one run every hour, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year.
Captain Michael Kane, if you have something to say,
right.
If you have to say, Chief, I'm calling you Captain because you are Captain of the people. If you have to say something to the mayor, what would you say to him again?
Well, here's the thing that you have to understand. We work for a department, and the problem is that not only does this administration know it, the city administration and the fire administration know it. They bank on it. They know that when that bell goes off, the men and women of the Philadelphia Fire Department will give 110% every time they go out the door. Whether it's a fire, EMS run, you got some of the most dedicated firefighters and medics in this country working for and they bank on that. And the idea, now, the last time I was on the show, we talked about the stress that goes on with our job. We've unfortunately had some guys that committed suicide. We had two very close friends of mine that did, and there was one who was the kid that did the calendar pose, the bare-chested calendar, Jack Slavinsky. There was another guy, Dave, and what I don't want to mention his last name, but what they both went in uniform before they stuck a gun to their chest and killed themselves.
So what would you say to the mayor?
What happened was when they seen the amount of frustration and the stress that's on there, they brought in this counselor, this national recognized counselor, to say, what can we do to stop these suicides? And then they actually had a program in the fire department where a counseling where you had to show a video and here's how we do and here's the signs, and then they do all that and you had to have a complete thing. And then 2 months later, they turn around and hand everybody a length of rope. You know what I mean? They, after all these things that they did in the medics, then they turn around. We're going to do the same thing to the firefighters. We're going to put we're going to dump as much as we can on you. And all we're saying to the mayor is, Jesus Christ, man, we're the good guys out here, man. We're not. Why? Because we didn't back you when you ran against Bob Brady, or we did something stupid when we said, oh, you know what? Let's poke him in the eye and back Milton Street, which was asinine. I'll admit it.
You heard the governor in Jersey knock down the mayor in New Jersey, and he did a good thing, and I'm glad he said it like it was, and that's what you're doing.
But I mean, are you seriously going to hold a grudge for 5 years because we didn't back you? And the reason we backed Brady, that I said earlier, was not only that he was going to honor binding arbitration, which you will not, but he came from a labor. He was a union carpenter. So that's why we took it. We got a union guy running for mayor. This is why we got to get with this guy.
I want to thank you. I want to thank you again for coming back to this chief, Mike Kane. But I called you captain because you are a captain. He's a captain of the people. And we want to, try. Let's help him. Let's help him. Tomorrow's Thanksgiving. Let's make it a motto this year before we turn into 2013 where more houses are on fire and they can't get to it because of whatever happens to it. I want to wish everybody out there again tomorrow happy Thanksgiving to all the people. Just remember, we have to appreciate what we have and not what we don't have. Next week, Trudy Haynes. You don't want to miss next week's show. I'm all excited. Can't wait. And we're still waiting to get an update on Josie Bratton on that date that she can appear on the show. This is Pearl Polto. As always, making the most of your credit, giving credit where credit's due. Today, it's to all the firemen out there. Have a nice holiday.
Interest